In this lesson, we're going to set dress our scene. Alright, so we've learned how to manipulate objects in the scene, and now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and bring in some props and start creating a little bit of the scene here through the method of set dressing. So let's go ahead and go to our DT Props folder, and inside of our DT Props folder you can take a look at all of the different meshes and props that you have available. So create something, we want to create something that is, it kind of looks like maybe it's a little bit lived in inside of this cave. They've made like maybe some makeshift tables and things like that. And so let's go ahead and bring in this crate. This is one of those crates that we had created. I'm just going to bring it in here, and let's maybe put it up against one of these walls or something like that against the cave. And I'm going to grab my rotate tool, hitting E on the keyboard, W to grab your move tool. Be sure to switch your world axis or local axis, whichever one you want to use, with your tool. Okay, we'll bring that in. I'm going to switch that over to the local space, hold down Alt, and I'm going to just pull that out. Now notice that my snapping is turned off for the position, so that way that's not being affected. And let's go ahead and scale this guy. Hit R on the keyboard. I'm going to scale that in the X direction a little bit, just kind of elongate that crate. And I might elongate it in the Y a little bit, something like that. Let's grab our rotation tool, hitting E on the keyboard, and let's rotate that to where it's 90 degrees, sitting straight up. Grab our move tool, hitting W. And let's just go ahead and position this right over here somewhere, something like that. And let's take this crate, hold down Alt, and I'm going to move this in a coplanar fashion. So hold down Alt, I'm going to move it back here. Hold down Alt and move it one right here. And then we'll just kind of rotate these a little bit. Just kind of make them a little messy, because nothing is set down in a perfectly straight line. Okay. And go ahead and hold down Alt, and we'll clone that. We're going to set this right on top of this one. Okay. Maybe kind of offset it to where it's on this one a little bit more. And then let's take another one, hold down Alt, let's pull this down, and then grab our move tool, pull that down to the ground there, and then grab our rotation tool, hitting E, and let's rotate that to where it kind of looks like maybe this one has slid off the backside. Now you'll notice that it's kind of penetrating through right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my angle snap and just allow that to rotate a little bit more. Okay, perfect. So now that's in place. Now you'll notice that it's kind of just sitting right here. It's not resting on this one. Grab our rotation tool. Let's rotate that along the X in the local space. And let's grab our move tool. Let's move this in the world space and just kind of pull that over in the Y, where it bumps right up against that, and then in the X a little bit. Okay. Just like that. Looks good. Looks like it kind of fell off of there. So, very cool. All right, so now we have that. We've got some of these crates working in. Let's add in a couple more props. So we've talked about duplicating quite a bit here. Let's add in something like this pickaxe. Let's go ahead and drag that in, and we'll put this like maybe on top of one of these crates here. So with that selected, hit F on the keyboard. That'll frame in on your object. And oops, if we hold down Alt and then we drag outside of that, we can orbit around that object. Let's grab our rotation tool. Let's rotate this and grab our move tool, pull that up. Okay. And then let me pull that up here. Now, one thing that I wanted to show you really quickly is sometimes whenever you're trying to place objects, you may not be able to get them right on the ground or something like that. You can actually position things on the ground plane very quickly by hitting the End key on your keyboard, and that'll snap it to the ground plane. Now, it's not going to snap it to the surface of the floor. Okay, it's going to snap it to the ground plane. So just be careful when you're doing that. So we'll position this put it right on top of this box. Okay, rotate it a little bit more, and then pull it up a little bit. And I'm using WER to switch between the Move, Rotate, and Scale tool. Now, I don't want this to stick inside of these boxes here, so I just want to pull it out right about here. Maybe it's kind of just laying off the side there. That looks a little unnatural to me, so I'm going to pull that up. Try to get it as close to that crate underneath there as possible. And you'll have to come down at different angles, and you'll just kind of take a look at how that object looks. Let's go ahead and switch this to the local rotation. How that object looks, making sure that it fits into the scene, make sure it's on other objects. Rotate a little bit this way. You just want things to look natural. Okay, you don't want things just kind of floating in the air. You don't want them penetrating through. All things to think about with set dressing. Okay, so we've got that pickaxe just kind of sitting there. Maybe we want to put like maybe this cloth on one of these boxes here. So I'm going to take this cloth, I'm going to drag it over here, and I'm going to try to place it on this object as close as I can, and then we'll grab our Move tool and we'll just rotate that around, and then we'll position it onto the box. Now it's not going to fit onto that box because we rescaled it, so we'll get it as close as we can first. And I'm just going to let it penetrate through a little bit, just kind of give you an idea of how that's going to fit. Let's grab our Scale tool and scale that along the Y just a little bit. Let's turn off our snapping there. And do something like that, and then we'll grab our Move tool and pull that over. So it'll look something like that, and then we can just kind of position that on top there. Very cool. All right, so we've got that cloth just kind of sitting on that box there. Maybe our inhabitant here is got maybe some makeshift furniture or something like that, so perhaps they've got kind of a little table in this area. So maybe they put it up against this wall here, and I'm going to hit end and then pull it up a little bit. Try to get those legs to sit on that surface a little bit better. And then we can add in things like books. Okay. So maybe add a book in here. And we'll place that right up here, and then we'll hold down Alt, make a couple of books here. And just kind of set that, offset it a little bit, and then hold down Alt, drag that one off. And then this one we can set up to where maybe it's kind of was sitting up there at one time, but now it's a little off. Let's switch this to the world view. So it's kind of hanging off of one side of the book there. Now let's make sure that it's sitting on the table. As you can see, it's not. So let's go ahead and rotate that down. Grab our Move tool. Put that right up against there. Okay. So you can kind of see how that works with this set dressing. Maybe add a couple of coins. We've got some of those in here as well. So we can add a coin mesh here. Just kind of place some of those on the table. Okay. So something kind of like that. Okay. And then perhaps he's got a chair. So we'll add our chair in here. And I know I have a chair. There it is. So obviously the chair is going to go next to the table there. So position that right there. Now one thing that I noticed about this chair is this chair, the static mesh, is actually using two different textures, or two different materials. It's got one for the cloth and it's got one for the wood. The cloth material, if you look at this, you can see through the back side of that. I don't want that. So this can be taken care of very easily. If we click on our materials and we go to our cloth material, which is right here, double click on that, and what we want to do is we want to make this two-sided. And so if I come in, I can check this two-sided, and then simply apply and save that. Then I can close down my materials, and there you go. Now we've got the back side of our chair. You can see that. So two-sided material there. All right. So there we go. We've got our set dress. We've got everything going there. And we can just add a little bit more to this. We can build it up. We can maybe add in some other props, these barrels or something like that. Just add those in. So here, this is our first volume to the Quick Start to Unreal. This is the process of creating your projects, being able to manage those, importing assets into the content browser, creating materials for your assets, and then bringing all of those together, making sure that they work properly, and then bringing them in, moving them around your level, creating some sort of scene. You want to start out small in this process. And so we've accomplished that in this course. And now what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the assignment that I want to give you for this portion before we move on into the next volume, where we'll talk about creating an atmosphere, creating some sort of mood through lighting, through sound, and through particles and effects. So we'll get into talking about our assignment next.